Welcome back to Making It Awkward. I'm your host, Jessica Wilson. Today, you'll hear a conversation with my dad about his thoughts about and experiences with dehumanization, especially in the 1950s and 60s. We had a 40-minute recording, but goodness gracious, we just rambled for days. We wrapped, and my dad said he needed to rehearse before his next appearance. Today's episode will be short and sweet with some clips from that conversation. But first, we're heading into the holiday season, which for some people can be an incredibly complicated time. So much family, so much food, and so much family and food. Navigating family dynamics, especially around food, can be incredibly awkward. If you're interested in asking an eating-related question, you can send an email or voice memo to makingitawkwardpod@gmail.com. I'm also taking personal questions for a future Ask Me Anything episode. That same email address is always open for questions about how to make things awkward. Now, on to my dad. I asked him for this conversation because for the last 6 weeks of war between Israel and Palestine, news outlets have been talking about people both dead and alive like a simple math equation. People with full, beautiful lives are reduced to a digit, sometimes a decimal, or even a percentage. Nothing but numbers and symbols. Individuals who are loved become sterile statistics. We lose track of the depth and gravity of a situation when people become numbers. When humans are not human anymore, it's easy to justify their detainment, kidnapping, subjugation, imprisonment, and death. We're able to believe that killing thousands of adults and children is okay, even a good thing in the name of peace. We can believe that abandoning babies in incubators makes sense. And truly, it's been devastating to me. I came back from US PATH and got a medium seizure flare upon my re-entry into the 24/7 news and social media coverage of the war. I couldn't believe how people weren't talked about as if they had truly lived before their lives ended. Isabel Wilkerson, in her book Caste, notes that the ability to dehumanize is an intentional process, a programming, and creates an outgroup and an in-group. She calls this, quote, a war against truth, against what the eye can see and what the heart could feel if allowed to do so. Today's conversation starts with my dad and I recapping his response to sitting down to be served at a restaurant in his hometown for the first time ever in his life. And that was just 4 months ago. I had traveled to Atlanta to speak at a book conference. My spouse and dad flew out to sightsee and take a trip to Toccoa, Georgia, where my dad grew up. We drove through the tiny town and he showed us the school he attended growing up. It was closed and shuttered. The school had closed during integration, so the white students wouldn't have to be taught there. It had lived another life as a learning and recreation center at some point, but the buildings were now empty. He showed us the brick church down the street from the school and told many tales of the times he got in trouble there. He showed us the Ritz movie theater. Its door for coloreds was still there, off to the right. He told us about sitting in the gallery above the white patrons, about sitting in the peanut gallery. After roaming around that incredibly tiny town, we arrived at the few blocks with restaurants and shops, and also the tiny DMV. There was now an organic spa and salon in town. My dad was quite surprised. The three of us chose a restaurant at random and got seated. It felt fine to me. When we got our menus, my dad started looking around the restaurant at the walls and the ceiling. I asked him what he was up to, and he said he'd never been to a restaurant in Toccoa at which he was actually served food. When he was growing up, there were walk-up restaurant options for Black folks and also a buffet that his family would visit on Sundays. But he'd never had someone cook his food specifically for him. And it showed in our conversation.
The whole thing was, in reality, how many Black people of Toccoa come to R&R Prime? I mean, are we the only ones? What is going to be the level of service that we get there? Is it going to be honest, fair pricing, everything? I mean, are the people that are serving our food, are they willing to take the time to prepare food for us correctly?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I
mean,
he'd never been afforded the humanity to be served food just for him. I called a cousin of mine to join us at the restaurant, and he had no idea where we were eating. The town is maybe 2 miles by 2 miles, and he'd never been to the restaurant or to any of the other places on that strip other than the DMV. When he arrived, he and my dad told stories for what seemed like days. My cousin is maybe 30, but his laugh is timeless. He's the guy who picks up his whole leg when he laughs and slaps his knee. You laugh, then see him laughing, and you laugh some more. We were getting looks and stares for being those people in the restaurant. You know, the people clearly having the best time. As we were leaving, one of the white women who had been dining nearby approached me. She smiled and told me that my cousin had the most infectious laugh, in a very genuine and warm way. I have to admit I was taken aback and also then somewhat relieved in this tiny town. As my dad and I continued the recording for this episode, I shared what I had been seeing in the news and if he thought Black people were an out group when he was growing up, and his answer surprised me.
My thing, you hear that slang used all the time. Boy, it was second-class citizens. Like, no, I disagree. We were not second class. We didn't exist. Everybody talking about second class. You still have rights, but you're second class citizen. No. We were not supposed to have any rights as people when I grew up. We were, okay, you stay here in this area. You don't come out. We give you a job if we need, if we need it. No, second class citizen is just something, a phrase is white people. Poor white people are second class citizens.
Oh, poor white people.
Yeah, because that's how if our white people of wealthier look down upon poor whites. But poor whites, those are second class citizens.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you get beyond poor white, you're down. Now you're in the black category. You are not even a second class citizen. That's the way it was when I grew up. Because you had poor whites that went to grocery store shopping and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The dirty husbands and everything stayed in the car. They would not even go in the grocery store with their wives.
White people.
Yeah, white people. We're talking white people.
Okay.
They were so embarrassed by themselves that they didn't hold the same, I don't know, class or wealth or whatever.
Yeah.
That they were too ashamed. So those were your second class citizens.
Interesting.
Now, when you got to black people, you can't use second class citizens the way the white people of that era looked upon us. So we were a non-existing, but they were forced to put up with type people. They had to put up with us.
Interesting.
But we were not a second class citizen. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Growing up, he and his friends got regular reminders that they weren't human.
The Black lives were not worth it. As far as there were threats. There were, like I said, I've got guns pulled on me. I was shot at. Things, bullets flying overhead. We were playing out in the field one day. Just James and I, we were just playing out in the driveway, and by God, man, what's that strange noise? There were bullets going across our head. Why is somebody shooting over us? Things like that. Because here you were an object, not a person. Yeah. You're an object of immense hatred.
Sure.
Yeah. We were not human.
During this conversation, my dad and I discussed how much of this is based on social constructs. We discussed how the construction of narratives of good and evil are similar to those of race and a gender binary. They only exist because someone made it up and we've all been conditioned to believe it's real. We talked about how we're vulnerable to being told to hate a group of people when we're fearful, traumatized, and even insecure. Both fear and craving power drive our need to subjugate others. When resources are scarce, we're given a group of people to blame rather than those in places of power, governments, political parties, and even white supremacy, that are imposing the inequity and even creating the scarcity. To close out our conversation, I asked him what he thought was ahead.
I mean, as much as I would like to see a very humanitarian existence for all beings of the world, I'm afraid it's impossible.
Yeah.
Because we have this, I've always thought there's a great insecurity there's a great insecurity among people of one race. I mean, there's the greatest, white America has the biggest insecurity kick as you could. They're taught insecurity and keeping up with the Joneses. That was one of the biggest. We got to keep up with other white people as far as their possessions. And here again, always fight for so you're always in competition with people of your equal or higher. That's what they said. So that means, okay, you have to, the people that you see as below you, you have to exclude. Those are the people, you don't want to have anything to do with. So you're taught insecurity as you're maturing or as you're
programming.
You're programmed to be insecure. Always want what that other person's got something nice. Well, your idea is to have equal amount of niceties or better. So they call it being competitive. No, it's being, it's not being secure with what you are. I'm secure. I'm more secure with what I got. I'm happy as pig and shit with me. But there are some people that will, and it causes a great insecurity as far as you see other people more, getting more than, darn it, okay, you dislike that person, and especially, okay, here's a black person, but it's better than I am. Holy shit. Jesus Christ, that's not supposed to.
2016.
Yeah.
2016. That's what happened in 2016.
But no, it was, as far as, no, I stopped wishing for a level humanity or society or whatever years and years and years and years ago. It's just impossible for it to exist. I'm sorry, it's just not in the psychic.
Interesting.
It's just not there. I don't believe it will ever happen. The only thing, and I'm afraid just is the idea of war or discontent amongst races of people is going to stay there. I mean, it's going to stay.
Do you think people will realize that race is fake?
No, it's
a social construct. It's not real.
No, that is also gonna be there because people have to, as a society, they need somebody to blame.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all it is to it. Their failure has to be a result of someone else. Yeah. It's always been that way. I mean, the ones that cannot achieve,
need to blame it on somebody.
Need to blame it. It has to be somebody else's fault, not theirs, but it's the fault of someone else. And the idea of getting angry when you see a person of not your race or whatever at a better level than you are creates even more. So it's you're always going to have, put it this way, we're going to be in a world of racial unrest forever. I mean, it's a part of human nature. It's never gonna.
I mean, if we have universal basic income, if we have universal access to health
care, then yeah, but
if we had, like, if everybody has resources and doesn't have to, like, scrape and hustle.
Take advantage of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Possible.
I feel like there is that option. I feel like the discrepancy will, or like the hatred can, like,
subside.
Narrow. Yes. If we don't have to compete, if our needs are met, that's.
But you can't do that in a capitalistic competitive society.
The end.
I definitely agree with my dad on that last one. When it comes to humanity and to whom it is afforded, we're taught to think that it's complicated. Even though we can't distill something into a single story, I think some things really are simple. Thousands of people should not be killed anywhere, under any circumstances. People are not numbers. We live full, beautiful, complicated, and weird, awkward lives. The loss of life is not simply a statistic. Until next time, I hope you all are taking care of yourselves and those around you, and that you're living full, beautiful, awkward lives. This has been an episode of Making It Awkward. I'm your host, Jessica Wilson. The best way to support the show is to follow, rate, and review. This podcast is sponsored by the Legacy of Sacramento Outboard Services and a production of The Body Politic. It's edited and mixed by the fantastic Jen Jacobs, who you will get to hear from in our next episode.